Committee meeting, March 13th, 2025.
It's 4 p.m. This is updates to the zoning and plating map for the city of Bucyrus. Members James Mee, Vicky DeShawn, Bill Stuckert, Landon Hill. Mike Keefe is his chair, but he's not here today. I'm pro tem. First we have public participation. Updates to the zoning plating map. I think we'll start with Dylan Wyatt today. You can sit there if you like. Perfectly fine.
All right, great. All right, so I've read through this portion of the zoning code from 1125 through 1131, I believe. Read through it, made pretty significant changes to it. They're all noted in the packets that were handed out. Most of these changes are just, it's been 50 years since some of this stuff's been updated. The technology that is used to collect a lot of this data and honestly what we expect in a design has changed drastically in those 50 years, and we've learned some from the existing subdivisions that have been in for 20, 30, 40 years and are really just trying to make some corrections to things that we do want to happen now or that we don't want to happen any further. So these are my first draft of comments about these things. I do hope that everybody gets a chance to read through them. I know they came out kind of late this week, but I hope that everybody gets to read through them, and the intent is for this to be kind of a discussion, and if anybody has any additional things that should be added or where you don't agree with some of the stuff that I put, I'm more than happy to talk about it. So do you want me to just run through these as a...
Please.
Okay, so we'll just run through the specific things that I have comments on. Like I said, a lot of this is just clerical type of things, cleaning up, and then also really writing down how we already review things anyways. So in my first comments as I went through this are in 112702.
Hey, John.
I don't have page numbers.
Yeah. It's page 5 of the marked up copy.
Page 10 maybe?
That's what I had. That's what mine is. 10.
Okay. Yeah, so 112702, these are sketch plan contents, so this is when somebody intends to do a subdivision. This is the first draft, really a simple drawing as it is intended to be, just to go over with the city. That way the city has time to take a look at it, figure out what portions of the zoning code may apply, bring up any type of concerns, things like that. So really some of this is just clerical relation to all the transportation modes, shopping centers, manufacturing establishments, and residential developments, then breaking this out as a separate line or a separate sentence to state that existing natural and man-made features, including contours, wooded areas, drainage swales, wetlands, streams, rivers, and 100-year floodplain. In section A, grammatical correction in C. And then in D, I think it would be wise to make these labeled as a sketch plan, just for the sake of, I've found that when we're looking at historical data in town, historical plans, you may have 3 different sets of a set of plans, and nobody knows which one was current, which one was sketch plan, finals, or as-built. So just making sure they're labeled properly. And then in E, a big portion of this and many of the changes that you'll see in here pertain to when the city was allowing private on-site septic systems to be put in within corp limits and private wells to be put in with corp limits. The intention of this is to not allow either of those in subdivisions within corporation limits. So that's just removing a section in E. Next is 112706. I just think it's wise, again, given today's technology, that to require a larger scale than 1 inch equals 100 feet. So just for legibility. So I think it's the best way to do this, and how I've seen it done in other towns, is to break it down based on the acreage of the subdivision. So 10 acres or less. Yeah, let me see here. 100 feet to the inch for developments greater than 10 acres, 50 feet to the inch for developments 10 acres or less. Then in 112707C, just a clerical thing, surveyors are now referred to as professional surveyors, not registered surveyors. Then again, the same comment about the scale in E. Then in J, existing contours at intervals not greater than, I think that should be changed to 1 foot. Again, just technology has come a long way in 50 years. We're more than capable of including 1 foot contours on maps.
And that's for the grade of the site, right?
Yep, that's for the site grading. Yep. So that will show existing grades as well as the proposed. Okay, and then K is just, again, kind of clarifying. So it seems like this was all written, obviously, when everything was combination sewer, and things were broken out. Like sewer was not identified as a utility. It was a separate item in a lot of these, and I'm not really sure why. So this is, in K, it's just a clarification, showing all the utilities, sewers, and then spelling all of it out: sewer, water, storm, as well as privately held utilities, gas, electric, telecommunication. And it's just utilities, and then including also stormwater management facilities. That's something that wasn't even thought about in 1974.
Which would be your detention
That's,
basins, your.
yep, detention basins, any water quality treatment structures, anything like that. Whether constructed or existing. Then in supplementary information, 112708, I think there's several things that need to be added in here just to account for how primarily the stormwater management is governed in today's world. So one of the supplementary items is the proposed covenants and restrictions of the development, but what isn't discussed in here is any sort of HOA. I know everybody typically tries to avoid them if at all possible, and what we've found really everywhere we work is that the detention basin or stormwater quality treatment devices that are on site, once that developer leaves town, there's no way to govern the maintenance of those around town, and how everywhere else that we work privately is handling this is all through an HOA. There's a requirement that at a minimum the HOA is established to collect money to maintain and service the detention facilities on site.
Is it the case that in some instances that's the only thing that HOA does?
Yeah. Yep. So you can use it also as kind of the holder of the deed restrictions and covenants for the properties. But yeah, for the most part, it's the HOA is established only to collect dues and maintain the detention basin, and with the requirement that that detention basin is in common area in the development owned by the HOA.
Which with development of like our MS4 regulations and that type of stuff, we're trying to stay on top of
Yes.
storm detention
Yep.
basin maintenance and those types of things. So having something like this in place would be important moving forward to ensure that the city doesn't get stuck taking care of a detention basin that isn't necessarily theirs
Yep.
to take care of.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we have a method of controlling it when it's a detention basin for a single commercial development or whatever it may be, but when you get into residential type properties where a basin could, if you look at some of these older subdivisions that do have basins, the basin is on multiple properties, so who knows who actually has maintenance of it, and ultimately it ends up being either somebody's really motivated from the subdivision or it ends up being the city that takes care of it. So we're just trying to avoid that. Couple other things that it should be included, again, just change in time. Ohio EPA, so any water or sanitary sewer improvements that happen on the site will be required to have an EPA permit to install. As a part of that, the city just has to sign off on forms. So it would be the expectation that the developer provides all of those forms filled out, ready for the city to sign off on when they submit. And then final section is G, and that is just in the case of, so notice letters and responses for any evaluations of wetland streams, environmental concerns. So that's primarily for around here, the wetland concern or any floodplain concerns, anything like that. Um, 112711. There's no city health department anymore. I do think it's wise that as a part of the preliminary plat that there's at least an acknowledgement and sign off from the utility foreman that will ultimately be owning and, not really owning, but maintaining that facility. So I think we can remove the city health department and say all applicable utility department foreman or something along those lines. 112712, the approval period. This has come up here recently with a couple developments around town. So current approval period is 12 months. I've put in there, I think it needs to be added that the approval shall only be effective for the original developer as named on the plat. And that is up to you all if you want to have any sort of exemption on that. But it has come up recently.
Meaning, what's the recent
So-
example? Was it Kincora?
No, it was with Arrowhead. So the plans that were originally done for Arrowhead, I believe for Harders,
Yes.
and then now Mr. Lutz owns
Yeah.
those.
Okay.
And so that approval would not be valid for him as the current owner, given, and really for him, it's the date as well, because
Yeah,
they're
'cause that was-
20 years old.
Yeah. Meaning submission, starting completely over?
Well, I guess that can be addressed in here. Whether it's a starting, most places, yeah,
Yeah.
you would be starting completely over. Especially if the 12 months has passed.
Yeah.
Certainly. But I guess that's kind of up to everyone here on what the process is. If somebody, because we've had this happen recently, and it was allowed in the municipality where we were working. We did a private development, a subdivision, and the gentleman that we were working for took our approved set of drawings and was marketing them, making an attempt to sell them as a shovel-ready development. So that's what you need to, that's what this is in here for. If you want to allow that, I think that's fine. I think there needs to be a portion of the process at least that's gone back through. But we'll leave that up to you. And then the only other item I put in here, so 12 months is a pretty short time period, especially in today's world of development, especially around here. But just as a discussion item, if they submit for permit to install PTI for water and sewer from EPA, the water PTI is approved for 5 years. The sewer PTI is approved for 18 months with the option of an 18-month extension. So just to give you an idea of their approvals through EPA for the public utilities are significantly longer than the 12 months. I don't think you need to take it out to 5 years, but certainly it wouldn't hurt to raise it to 18 months, just as something to talk about.
If you were to put some type of, I don't know what you would call it, an extension or if it was transferring to a different, what would you call that, an exemption for a new owner or something? What?
Yeah.
Are you aware of, I guess, are you aware of anything you've seen other
I don't
places?
know, I haven't.
Okay.
No, I really haven't. But I also, other than that one instance, and that client of ours handled that all on his own, though we didn't do anything with it as far as talking with the village about it. So I don't know what the rules were there. Good on that one?
Yeah, I think something does need to be added there though for, yeah, transfer of ownership. I guess I just don't know. Brandon, do you have anything on that potentially?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is, I guess maybe you could include in it, transfer of, the approval is non-transferable unless
Approved by the planning commission.
approved by the planning commission, or something along those lines. That leaves it open, at least to have a discussion.
Right.
Could we do that after the zoning or not? Or would you, should we go to the planning commission?
Yeah, this would still be in the process that it would still be basically in front
Still be
of the
in
planning commission.
Okay.
Yep.
Bill, you got any questions?
No, I'm good with it.
All right, I'll move on. 11/27/15. Most of this is pretty straightforward. The only thing I would like to add, and again, this comes from attempting to look through historical plans that the city has. I think there needs to be a note added that all specifications shall be included in the construction and utility plans, that we are not going to permit supplemental specification packets. So how that would work, a lot of firms, they would give you a plan set and all it will say is that there is an 18-inch pipe running down the road, and then in the book, that will have all of the specs for what that pipe is, or the biggest one for us is really lift stations. Most sets of plans, they show a lift station, they label it as a pump, and that is all the information that's in the construction plans. And the problem is that the construction plans get scanned and get filed online or digitally in the city, and the spec book never gets scanned, or if it does, it's not held with the plans. So it's just document tracking. It's really all that's for.
And so you don't know the specifications of the pump and that type of thing when you
Yep.
get into looking
Yep.
at a lift station or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of it is you literally go out, pull the pump and get the nameplate and track down the person, or track down a current manufacturer and everything else. It's kind of a nuisance.
Yeah.
All right, 11/27/16, again, this is, I don't think that anybody requires Mylar here anymore. So you can either submit on Mylar or other material of equal permanence. Anymore, things get submitted in digital format, and, if we're submitting a hard copy, it's on like a 20-pound bond paper. And then The scale, again, that's kind of the same recurring note throughout here. Final plat contents, in section B, it is no longer the professional engineer that signs off on the final plat. It is only the professional surveyor. Section, this is where these start to get a little sticky here. Section I, this is duplicated in M already. And then I believe that section K should be, that's the copy of restrictions and covenants. That should be moved to supplementary information. L, again, it's professional surveyor, not registered surveyor. And then there needs to be a line added for a meets and bounds description of the exterior of the subdivision. Has to be included on the subdivision plat.
What's meets and bounds?
That's like a normal description.
Oh,
Legal
legal
description of
description,
the
okay.
property is always on the subdivision, of the exterior of the subdivision.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so change certification. So as-built construction plans should be provided in digital format and 2 copies on bond paper, not less than 18 by 24, not greater than 24 by 36. Must be submitted and sealed by the engineer, the original engineer for the subdivision. And then again, just re-adding in here that any documents about the proposed HOA should be included. I believe that is everything in the 1127s. All right, 112904, street design and standards. So this, again, this is where we get into if anybody has any questions or comments on this, please do speak up. So as it is written currently, the right-of-way, minimum right-of-way in the city is 50 feet with a minimum paved surface width of 26 feet. What we typically do for design is a minimum of a 60-foot right-of-way, and really that's just to accommodate. We have more utilities in the ground today than we ever have before. And then we do a 28-foot roadway for residential and a 32-foot roadway 28 for residential and commercial, and then 32-foot for industrial subdivisions. So that is, for residential and commercial, that is a 24-foot paved road and then a 2-foot gutter and then a 6-inch curb on each side. That would be standard design. And then for industrial, we just raise that up to a 14-foot paved road with a 2-foot gutter, 14-foot each side, and then a 2-foot gutter on each side, just because typically you're gonna have significantly increased truck traffic. The chart here, I'll have to work a little bit with Landon on this. I had some confusion on the chart, but for the most part, most of these comments are increasing the cul-de-sac or the right-of-way to a 60-foot minimum, increasing the road width, pavement width to 28 foot. And then also increasing, right now the minimum cul-de-sac size is 80 feet in diameter, and talking typical fire code and talking with the fire department here as well, that is typically a 96-foot diameter cul-de-sac. That's what it takes for them to turn their bigger trucks. And that is normal fire code today for cul-de-sac. 112906, vertical alignment of streets. Really just changing, they have a verbiage for a equation to figure out your vertical curves in your streets. I think the best way to say that is that they shall conform to the current requirements of ODOT location and design manual. Like, we don't need the technical verbiage in here.
What is the algebraic difference in the rate of grade for it?
I'm not really sure. How things are done today is, in AutoCAD, you specify the K value, which is just a generic value that's set based on the speed of the road. So, and it draws it all for you.
Gotcha.
So, I guess that's the easiest way for me to tell you that.
Yeah, I read that earlier. I was like, whew.
Yeah. I would imagine if I talked to Isaac about it as a surveyor, he might know, but
Yeah.
not me. All right, 112907 at intersections. This is just a kind of makes our job easier in the future. So when two streets come together, if the street is curbed, the right-of-ways should also have a radius in them rather than intersecting at a 90-degree corner. So this just allows, if we have to put a large radius on the road, it keeps the curb from going outside of the right-of-way. So in a curb street, you put a 20-foot radius in the right-of-way, and on an uncurbed street, you put a 30-foot radius to account if you have to put a ditch or a roadside swale in. And it just keeps the road inside the right-of-way where it's supposed to be. Because you have typically road and sidewalks and then potentially utilities along the side of the road that you're all trying to fit in the same area.
So that's instead of coming.
Instead of hitting at a 90, they put a radius in it.
Gotcha.
So just basically matching the radius that you're putting in the road anyways, in the curb. All right, then we go a couple pages, 112911 for sidewalks. So how this is written currently, commercial subdivisions, sidewalks are required to be put in when the development goes in. For residential subdivisions, sidewalks are required to be put in by the builder as the houses are built. The only thing to add here, and it's a standard that we've changed in the city as we've paved streets here, is that if you're on a corner lot, curb ramp shall be installed conforming to the current requirements of the ODOT location and design manual.
Is the, 100, lot width less than 100 feet requiring sidewalks on both sides of the residential subdivision, is that pretty typical? Is 100 feet an arbitrary number? What is it, or is it just?
No, that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally, anything less than 100 is typically gonna require curbs and sidewalks. Anything, the top end of that, where you get out of that requirement, varies. So here it's 150 feet. Some it is 100 and, you have to be more than 100 and more than 3/4 of an acre, for example, to get out of the curb and sidewalk requirement. So that part varies. I don't think what's written here is wrong, though.
Okay.
And then again, in 112912, that's talking about blocks and mid-block crosswalks. So again, it's the same. Any pedestrian crossing of a public roadway, curb ramps are to be installed. Um, 112913. Again, we have, some of these are duplicated in here, but so 60-foot right-of-way, 28-foot pavement width. Then in 112914, any easements, including detention basins, should also be included in there. this one is probably worth some discussion. So this basically allows, if somebody is within a floodplain, it allows development as long as they take necessary measures to reduce the risk of flooding. And I think in today's world, if you're within a 100-year floodplain, you're not building. That would be very normal.
I would have to assume so. And
I mean, the city went through all that work out on Lane Street to remove all those houses that were in 100-year floodplain. It's kind of the prime example of why we don't do it.
yeah, and are there any areas in the floodplain that would even have the potential to be developed as a subdivision? I'd be shocked if getting rid of this would eliminate any areas that were potential for development anyway.
Yeah, I don't know that. I didn't look at
Yeah.
that to see.
And I'm just
Yeah.
thinking off of memory. I
Yeah.
doubt that would be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, because I doubt we're gonna start approving development permits down on Lane Street.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be a good idea, just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So we would just keep A and just say that
Yep.
the planning commission shall reject any proposed subdivision located within a 100-year floodplain.
Yep. That would be my recommendation. Nothing else in here, really. The review fees, again, our fees in this town, Landon and I have talked about this a little bit, our fees in this town are very low. Now, we don't see hundreds of developers flocking here where this is a major moneymaker, but, you know, at a minimum, the city's gonna have review time on their own with all of their internal departments, and they're gonna be paying us to review these plans as well. They ought to be at least covering their costs on these things. Some towns have handled that as pretty significant review fees up front on every single subdivision. Some towns have handled this as we collect a $2,500 or $5,000 deposit, and we just bill against that until the review is done. Once the review's done, you get back any money, but if we have to keep going through this, you're going to have to add more money to it. So that's really up to you all how you want to set that, but I don't think we should be losing money every time we have to review a set of plans. I don't think that's the idea here.
So that it wouldn't be broken down by multifamily development, commercial development, industrial development per square foot or per living unit. It would simply be a rate established based on who it takes to review the plans.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be as simple as the rate set by the planning commission, and when the planning commission receives a set of plans, they can reach out to us and say, we need an estimate of your fees for reviewing this, and we can give you an idea of what we think it'll take, and that's what you charge.
So it's not even hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so an example that I had given Landon, the village of Cardington, we have a job going on in there right now where they reach out to their engineer comes back and says, we think it's gonna take this much. The village then adds 15% to it for just in case, and then that's what they charge for the review fee. And if there's anything left over, that gets turned back over at the end.
Yeah, that makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, the other option is, so again, Licking County this morning, they have, their sketch plan has an $800 fee, their soil and water has a fee, their city, the planning commission has a fee. And once you get up to subdivisions, their fees are, $3,000-$4,000 for the reviews. So it's, I don't think we'd be anywhere like that unless you're doing major subdivisions, expansive subdivisions. But I also don't think that a minimum fee of $50 is it either. I think there's a happy medium
That
there.
covers you coming here to pick up plans, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So something to consider fee structure wise.
Yep. Then guarantee for installation, 113101. So this is just referring to a bond that is required by the city. Again, this is a recommendation. I've seen it done both ways. So typically, there is a bond filed for the full estimated cost of the improvements to be installed as a, just in case this developer runs out of money or disappears or whatever in the middle of the project, the city has a way to finish the project on their own. You can either require that estimate to be prepared by the developer and then back-checked by the engineer, or you can require just us to do it, or it doesn't really matter either way.
What, I don't know if you even know, a bond of that amount, is it, that's not cost prohibitive,
I mean, you require it already, so
It's just who
this
is-
isn't changing it.
Okay.
And honestly, it's the right way to do it. You go back and,
to have you set that value.
well, either way, so some places would have the design engineer for the developer set that number. It is a number assuming prevailing wage, and then some communities say, we're going to take your number and multiply it by 110%. That is the bond we will require. Because you have to plan for this. If they go broke in the middle of this subdivision, you have to hire somebody to come in and finish it, and that bond needs to cover all of that. So, I don't think it matters either way. I think probably you're gonna come up with about the same number, and we can check the number anyways, so I don't know that we have to develop the cost estimate. If they develop it, we check it. All right, construction procedures and materials, 113102. There's a reference to Ohio Department of Health, which everything in today's world is reviewed by Ohio EPA, not the Department of Health. And then there's several notes in this section and the sections following about all inspection costs are paid for by the subdivider. So this would include all the general inspections as well as like pressure testing of the water lines and the sanitary sewers and cammering of the sanitary and storm sewers by the city. But there's no mention anywhere of how the city collects those fees. It just says that it's to be paid by the subdivider. Again, the way that I normally see this is that the developer pays a deposit up front, and that's gonna be, on a decent sized subdivision, that's gonna be $5,000 or $10,000, because you have to pay for all of basically the observation through all the different points of construction, all of the inspections. And again, you charge against that, and then anything that's left over gets returned to the developer at the end of construction.
Was this where we were discussing that, like, Ryan or somebody in a similar capacity through your office would be involved in the inspection process?
Yeah, you can do it that way. So some towns will require that they bring in their consultant or a full-time employee of the town, and they are a resident inspector for the entirety of construction, which is certainly valid. These are all improvements that are going to be turned over to the city to own and maintain forever. We want to make sure they're done correctly. Other towns have, here's our 15 key inspections. These will have to be done. We witness you backfilling trenches, we witness you proof rolling the road, we witness all of the pressure and vacuum tests, and we camera the sewers, all of those types of things. So you can do it either way. I honestly, I don't know that there's a need to
Have somebody camp.
have a full-time inspector out there. But certainly you could spell out 10 or 15 different inspections that you require. And then with the knowledge that you can stop by at any point in time, so. So, but I think it is best to do that as a note that there is a deposit. The subdivider will pay the deposit and then we'll charge against it.
I like that.
All right, 113103 monuments, markers, and pins. So this is for all of the right-of-way and lot corners. And again, this is just really cleaning things up to match what Ohio Administrative Code says currently about what's required. This goes slightly more restrictive than what Ohio Administrative Code is. They don't define that it is a 5/8 iron pin 30 inches long. They define that it is a ferrous metal object with a square, 0.21 square inches cross section, 30 inch. So we use 5/8 iron pins. Everybody uses 5/8 iron pins. Let's just say it. So yeah, that's just clarifying. And then those iron pins have to be identified with a durable marker bearing the surveyor's registration number and or name and company name.
Which is like the plastic cap you see
Yep.
on top of pins.
Yep.
If you ever uncover one.
Yep. And that, again, it's a little redundant. That is the minimum standard in Ohio Administrative Code. But we might as well just state that that's what we expect. 113104 street improvements. Again, here, we're just spelling out what we already make people do anyways. So it is the minimum amount of aggregate stone base. It is the minimum amount of base asphalt and the minimum amount of surface asphalt. Not intending to go into details as far as ODOT spec numbers on all of those items because those change frequently. Let's just spell it out as base asphalt, surface asphalt. That way it should always be valid that way.
So if the city were to put in a new stretch of road, this is what
This is how we would put it in.
Do.
Yep, this is how we would put it in.
And then you have minimum 8-inch limestone aggregate and minimum 8-inch concrete pavement. Is it still common practice to do concrete?
Some do,
roads?
there are certainly some concrete roads, and I think that one's worth having a discussion with
Yeah.
Jeff. I don't think anybody's fond of it, and really, that's a pretty substantial concrete section, which would mean that nobody's gonna actually put that in anyways. But I don't think that it's wrong to keep it as an allowance.
Okay.
But we're not gonna allow, we've reconstructed a lot of these roads
That's what I
around
said.
here.
That's what I was gonna
and
say. We've seen that come.
Specifically, my favorite was Woodland. There was a spot that we assumed that the base under the road was really bad, and when they tore it up, we determined that there was 2 inches of concrete over mud, and there was nothing else there, and the road had held up for 60 years, all right, I guess.
Right, it lasts a long time,
Yeah.
but then when they're gone, and we just got caught in the time
All
frame
of them
with
at the
which
same
all
time.
of them at the same time. So,
Yep.
Vicky, you'll remember Arrowhead subdivision. They
Yeah.
had we did that in 2 phases.
Right.
The concrete was removed and we put down pavement. Oakwood happened again. Right, yeah, Oakwood. No, not Oakwood. I'm sorry, Oak Ridge. We did that reconstruction. Beverly Drive is one that is still outstanding, and just simply because of budget, we keep having to kind of push that one back, but it's another one that's all concrete, and it's gonna have to.
Woodland and Edgewood.
Edgewood, I'm sorry,
Yep,
that's what I was
yeah,
looking for, not Oak Ridge, Edgewood. So I guess it was just a confluence.
Rosedale this
And
past year.
Rosedale, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've seen a lot of those here within the past 5 years, but I guess that's just because there was such an onslaught of development at that time, and they were all using concrete.
Yep.
And we
And I
just,
think they were using concrete at the time because they could self-perform all of it, and which worked out really great until it didn't.
but now it's like, what is the cost so for that street program, like, if we were to do Beverly as concrete versus do Beverly as,
Oh, it would be substantially more.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be substantially more. Yeah, I don't know exact numbers on it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 50% more maybe. If you went with like this section, which like I said, it's a substantial concrete section, but part of that is we don't really want them. We'll let you put them in, but if you do, they're gonna last forever. So I think it's better to do asphalt. It's maintainable by our city crews in-house. I think for that reason alone, I prefer it.
You think it's necessary to leave that as an option?
That's up to you all. I would be okay either way.
Okay.
Yep,
Maybe see what Jeff's opinion on that is?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, 113105, and there's a couple instances of this type of statement in the code. If we require pavement widths greater than those specified above, the city, and approved by city council, the city shall bear the extra cost of providing a greater pavement width than those required by the regulations. I mean, I think that we're safe to just repeal that section. I think that something like that could be handled on a case by case. You know, if the city all of a sudden expected some major development to come along and there happened to be a subdivision that we would have to drive through, yeah, maybe we'd look at it, but probably not. Not in today's world, I don't think. So that's probably something to look at not having in there anymore.
And because we already are increasing the widths required,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
113106, street curbs and gutters. Again, we should specify concrete curbs and gutters so we don't end up with rolled asphalt curbs. And then a statement that the standard curb and gutter for the city is a 6-inch curb with a 2-foot integral gutter, minimum thickness of 8 inches. And that we require under drain under all of our curbs. Again, this is just writing down some things that we would do ourselves if we're replacing a road. As a matter of, we do ourselves. We might as well state it.
It's coming up, but this would do away with the rolled
Yes.
curbs that you see like at Kincora,
Yeah.
and go to our more standard curb
Yeah.
style that we see in the rest of the city.
Yeah, the rolled curbs look good for a while, and then they start to deteriorate. And a lot of the problem with them, when the city's out plowing snow, the curbs are what they bump up against to know where they're at. When that is a rolled curb, they end up and over it frequently, which is just really hard on it. So the 6-inch curb is really just preferred for that reason. Let's see. Okay, so then sidewalks. I think that we typically require sidewalks to be concrete. I don't think there's normally an or acceptable material. Do you know that, Landon?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And then minimum depth of 4 inches, except at driveway crossings, the sidewalk shall be 6 inches.
Which
And it-
matches our standard detail.
Yep. All right, then on driveways, 113108, maximum grade at 10%, except, we should add, except when crossing a sidewalk, the grade should be restricted to 2%. Again, just ADA accessibility on our sidewalks, minimum depth of 6 inches. This is where we've got some contradiction here. Driveways shall be located not less than 3 feet from the side lot line, but then we're putting a 5-foot flare on the driveways.
So the standard detail for residential is has a 3-foot flare currently.
Okay, so then we should just match that.
Yes, that's what, that was
If
the
that's
note.
what we're doing, we should just match.
That was the note I had there, and then the 3 foot, you know, I guess ultimately if you have, you'd have just two
They could be touching.
aprons
Yeah.
coming together at a
Yeah.
point almost.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the rolled curbs, again, just removing. We're not putting those in anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Next section with comments is the water supply section. These are rather extensive. And again, I don't need to paint everybody with me reading through all of these, but this is just writing down the rules that we currently expect people to design to. So it goes through the minimum sizes of the lines, that they have to have a PTI, a permit to install from Ohio EPA, water main, material type, water service sizes and material types, water meter, or new water service shall have a water meter pit. Water mains and water services installed prior to acceptance of the subdivision. And then at the very last one, I just give the specs for the pressure testing that is required of the water lines prior to city acceptance, and the AWWA specs that have to be along with that.
So a meter pit is preferred by the city, not only for not having to pay for the loss of water between your curb box and your meter in your house. So if, you know, if currently if a house has a leaking service line, that water we are losing that before it gets to the meter, and it'd be very difficult for us to track. So a meter pit would put that meter out by the curb. Does it have advantages for our service people?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's uninhibited access all of the time.
Right.
You know,
You don't
there's
have to
there's
worry about
never
someone being home to access the
Yep,
meter if
there's
there's an
never a
issue.
concern of tampering with the meter because it's outside in the pit by the road, not rather than in somebody's basement. You don't have to argue with people to get into their house to see the meter, those types of things. So that's really the reason for the change.
Yep.
And fire protection do have a change. Minimum size water line servicing any hydrant shall be not less than 6 inches in diameter. Again, we've talked about this several times internally. This is just a change to reflect what is currently the requirement of Ohio EPA. And then yeah, then that last line can just be removed. It's being covered above. Any questions on the water side of things? All right, then sanitary sewer, there is a lot of information in there currently that that is basically all being removed because we're requiring everybody to connect to our sewer system.
Yeah.
We're not letting them put in home septic systems. We're not letting them put in their own package plants, any of that. We're requiring them to hook up to the city system. So again, I kind of laid these out the same way. We run to minimum pipe diameter, class material of pipe. They have to put in manholes and all the requirements to go along with those. Service line minimums. Again, mains and services shall be installed before acceptance by the city. Then we have all of the testing requirements. And then the final thing is typically, in any city projects as well as any private projects, the city does video inspection with their sewer camera prior to acceptance of any improvements. That goes for any city projects as well as private stuff. So again, that is performed by the city at the cost of the developer. Storm sewer.
That'd be against that
Yeah.
inspection deposit we.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep. Storm sewer is our big one here. And the last 3 pages of the document that's sent out is that full comment, because it's cut off partway through. So we should call this the storm sewer and drainage improvements rather than just drainage improvements, since now we do have separated storm sewers in town. So again, just like the last time, I run through minimum sizes, specs of the pipe, the manholes, the expectation that service lines are to be installed. So currently in the code, there's a requirement that all surface and subsurface water from new residences shall be conducted in a storm sewer conduit. This is just, we require services to be installed just as if it were a sanitary sewer, so that everybody has a place to connect to. Everything installed prior to acceptance, video inspection by the city. G is that storm sewer mains are designed for a 10-year rainstorm. H is a big one, especially if you talk much with Jeff Dunn. Many of the subdivisions in town, and everybody that lives in town probably knows about it, that your backyard's wet. And there's not really anything that anybody can do about it. So we are making a requirement that backyard drainage shall be required in all new subdivisions moving forward. And that is not just swales, it has to be storm sewers, catch basins in the backyards.
Yeah, so out in Huggins, this is an issue. Vicky's aware, she tiled her backyard. And we talked with her and helped her get into the storm system out there.
And it's working great.
Good. So yeah, Huggins, Arrowhead, Brentwood, you see these issues in the major subdivision areas, and then it becomes, the city's fault.
Yeah. When these subdivisions are 40 years old,
Yeah.
nobody has anybody to blame except for
Except
everybody
us.
calls the city now. Because it's their fault.
So that being the case, it'd be good to have a system in place to handle that stormwater so it doesn't become an issue for us down the road. And I was talking with Jeff Dunn, and he said if this, well, I said it for him, but if this ad hoc committee accomplishes nothing else other than getting stormwater requirements for subdivisions, he'll be a happy man.
All right, that's basically it for the storm sewer conduits themselves. Then I go into site grading, which is really a part of the drainage improvements. So just a statement that complete site grading plan shall be submitted, show general runoff pattern, as well as runoff patterns from neighboring properties, and then proposed contours not greater than 1 foot. Again, just showing the site grading. And then stormwater management structural practices section. This is going to be your detention basins, retention basins, underground storage, water quality units, whatever it may be. So in order to meet the city's MS4 and the Ohio EPA construction stormwater general permit, developers in both subdivisions as well as one-off site developments are required to detain stormwater, treat it for water quality, and release it at rates not greater than what it currently releases at. So a lot of what I tried to write this as simply as possible and really make it so we don't have to keep coming back and changing it. So I reference the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Rainwater and Land Development Manual, current edition, which that is the Bible of rainwater and stormwater development. It is what everybody reviews based on, and it was developed in partnership with ODNR and Ohio EPA. So it's easiest just to reference that as current edition, just to keep from having to change this in the future. We expect water quality treatment We expect all detention basins to be able to retain the 100-year rainfall event from the developed site and then provide emergency overflow for instances when the outlet should plug or anything like that. Let's see. They have to include all of their drainage maps, which shows, off-site and on-site rainwater that comes into their development. And where's the last? The other, I think I missed it in all my listings. If connecting, this should be added in there, if connecting to a combination sewer with a new development, we require everything to be restricted, the 100-year storm to be restricted all the way back to the 1 year pre-developed. So we're trying to take as much of the burden off of our combination sewer system as possible if it's going to be connected to. And then the last items are, it is just a listing of supplemental material that we expect to be submitted along with the construction plans. And again, this is exactly what we require currently. It is just writing it down. And it is what every town in the entire state of Ohio should be requiring. It is the state minimums.
So in restricting 100-year back to 1 year, with what Jim brought up prior to, really, if we do that and the detention system is adequate, it shouldn't contribute to additional CSO overflow?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would actually improve the situation, assuming that, so if a drainage area all drains to a combination sewer currently, we would then take all of that water and restrict it all to the pre-developed 1 year storm. So that is like a, don't quote me on this, that is like a 2 1/4 inch rainfall over 24 hours is considered a 1 year storm. So it would take everything up to a 100-year rainfall that is approaching a 7-inch rainfall.
So it would improve the situation.
It should improve the
Yeah.
situation, yeah. But in an instance like there, that is, we would require the installation of a separated storm sewer.
Right.
It is feasible there to install a separated storm sewer, so we would require that.
Gotcha, okay.
And that is what, I thought that I had a note in here about that, but that was part of the note, is that, connection to a combination system is the absolute last place we go. If there is an opportunity to connect or run a new outlet or whatever it may be to a storm sewer, that is what should be done.
Makes sense. And then, so your larger comment here that's related to stormwater and drainage, storm sewer and drainage improvements, it's serving supplemental to Part 9, Title 5,
Yeah.
which is basically us codifying, I guess, explain that.
Yeah, so as it stands currently, in Title IX, you do not have, which would be where you would get most of your enforcement for one-off private site designs, or commercial, industrial, whatever, one-off sites. Currently, there's not a storm sewer section in there. We have been enforcing through the 1333 ordinances for the MS4 the proper way to do this, and again, I talked to Landon about it. I looked through Ashland, City of Ashland. This is exactly how they do it as well, is that they state that their subdivision regulations for storm sewer shall serve as supplemental to their Title IX ordinances, basically so that they don't have to rewrite all of them a second time.
So kind of two birds with one stone by
Yeah.
bringing the subdivision regulations up to current
Because the
standard.
other option is to copy and paste this 3 pages of stuff into the
And
Title
put it
IX
into the
as well.
900s, yeah.
And that, I mean, I guess, maybe, but I don't know if that makes sense. All right, good with that. Any other? Okay. 11/31/16. This is just some clerical things. We have more than just telephone service in today's world. Typically, that would be referred to as telecommunication, which could cover telephone, cable, fiber. Probably best to change the verbiage there. And then they have odd verbiage about installing sanitary sewer lines in the same utility easement as telephone, electric, gas, whatever it may be. And typically, we would not allow that. That the sanitary and storm specifically should have their own dedicated easement because it's major construction. If we ever have to replace those, we don't want to be fighting a fiber optic line that's 5 feet away from us the whole time.
Is there any requirement for the proximity of a water line to sanitary?
Yeah, and that's all covered. That's all covered through the PTI system at
Okay.
EPA. But yeah, you have to have 10 foot, if you're running parallel, 10 foot of separation between a water line and a sewer, and sewer is defined as either storm or sanitary, and then 18, if you're crossing perpendicular, you have to have 18 inches of clearance as well between either water to storm or sanitary. Yep. And that's, again, yeah, maybe we can include it in there. I don't think it's really necessary.
Because
It is,
the
it
EPA
is
will tell
a
them.
requirement that when I submit a set of plans to Ohio EPA, that statement has to be in my set of plans, or else it won't get approved. Kind of like the statement about roof drains, downspouts, foundation tiles not allowed to be connected to sanitary sewers. That has to be in the plans or it will not get approved. Covers all of those. 11/31 inspection, again, sanitary sewer, storm sewer. It's good to specify the difference between the two. And then a note that the developer has to notify the city prior to testing of utilities so that the city can be there to observe the tests of the utilities that they're about to take over. And then in 11/31/21, again, as-built plans, we don't need Mylar or linen anymore. We will simply take paper and digital formats. There should be some extra certifications in here, that written certification from the developer's engineer that as-built conditions, based on the as-built conditions of the site, the stormwater management will perform as originally designed. That's pretty boilerplate in today's world. You have to as-built the storm sewer system. The engineer then just confirms that it's put in per plan and signs off stating, this is put in per plan, it will work as originally designed. Need to pass all of the video inspections and the testings required of the water and sanitary sewer. And then also, really along with that in section E, could be written acceptance from the utility foreman that they were there to observe the tests. And then really my only other comment's just about the fees. So it should just be cleaned up in that language in 11/33/04. Currently, I believe council establishes the fees and that it says it's maintained at the office of the city clerk, which should be changed anyways.
Do you have those fees, Miranda?
Why not?
Forever ago. Probably not anything recent.
Probably back in '74.
Yeah, then just need to be able to collect the deposit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dylan.
Yes.
Yes,
Hope
excellent job,
everybody's
thank you.
Enjoyed my rambling.
No, that was great.
But yeah, if you have, you know, once you actually have a chance to sit down and go through this stuff, more than happy to come back up here and answer any questions or stop out at my office. I'm there sometimes.
So Brandon, procedurally then, I think we need to take into consideration what Dylan said, read through these again, but how does this body then vote? Can we vote on the totality of these recommended changes? Can we?
Well, you can say, discuss it if you like the changes and you don't want to have some changes and not other changes, then you can do a vote and say, you would like the law director to make these changes and work with Dylan and make sure it's right, and then give it back to you guys.
Is everyone comfortable with that as it stands? Do we want a chance to read through them again, make notes? I mean, I'm gonna defer to, you know, Dylan's the expert on these things.
I was gonna say, Dylan.
You know,
There's-
you know my opinion.
There's little reason
So,
for.
do I have a motion?
I would make that motion to have the law director incorporate the proposed changes to chapters 1125 through 1133 and present those back when, I guess when they're finished. We don't need to put a timeline on you or anything, but I would make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
Don't tell me you don't want a time frame. I'm going 5
We'll get the 900s approved and then we'll move on to these.
Hey, you have the 900s.
I know, I'm with you.
Okay, so the 900s are taking precedence over this, right?
Currently, yes.
Then health and safety legislation. Drafts you need to do.
You should see my wall. My wall
Oh, I bet.
is full of to-do lists.
Vicky,
Excuse me. You were asking
to vote.
vote, yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes. To-do list,
What's that?
on your to-do list.
It's all my to-do list. It's all on the wall.
Hopefully we'll be taking the 900s off of there soon.
I don't know what you could change at this point.
I think we're circling in on, we're there, we're close.
Let's say, what else could you change?
We're close,
It's really minor now,
yeah.
really minor. We're
So,
down from like 3 hours to go through 15 minutes.
yeah,
That's fantastic.
progress. So for this body, do we want to set another meeting now? Do we want to wait until we're able to get Mike's input on the next meeting?
Yeah, I'd refer to Miranda on that.
It's up to you guys.
You want to wait for Mike?
Yeah, we can discuss and let Miranda let you guys know.
Okay.
I think last time we talked about breaking into the actual zoning designations and zoning map portion of the code, so that'll probably be where we go next, but,
Okay.
once Mike's back, we'll get with Miranda and set something up.
Okay. Miranda, notify everybody.
Okay.
We done for today?
I feel good.
Everybody feel good?
Good here.
Good. Meeting adjourned at 5:15.